What's up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to be speaking about what it can look like when you have your Pluto in an opposition to your partner's Mars in SYNASTRY. This aspect can be a mix of intensity and a lot of attraction, as well as passion, and even a little bit of frustration when it comes to the opposition between Mars and Pluto. And for that reason, it's actually also an aspect that can be potentially explosive between two people. It also can be one that can be very magnetic, as far as also being one that's drawing both of the people, the Mars person and the Pluto person, towards each other with this aspect in their relationship. And when it comes to having an opposition here and having one person's Mars being directly opposite another person's Pluto, this can actually make for the dynamic to feel like there's a little bit of a push and pull between the two of them and their relationship. We have Mars, which is a planet all about drive, assertiveness, action, and energy. But with the Pluto, this is an intense energy, and also Pluto represents power. Pluto is all about transformation and those deeper desires. And with both of these energies from the Pluto side and from the Mars side, putting both of these planets' energies in an opposition is going to make it so that they have something very intense, passionate, and there could also be power struggles between the two of them. And that is where at times this connection can feel intense, it can feel passionate, but still be one that can actually be a little bit challenging at times. Something quite positive about this aspect that it can bring to a relationship between two people is this really powerful sense of attraction between the two of them. This aspect can bring a lot of heat between the Pluto person and the Mars person, because it can feel like the energy between them is quite raw, it's quite primal and magnetic, and that can be almost even kind of hypnotic for the way, when it comes to the way they feel about each other and being in each other's presence. And one thing about this connection is that it's definitely not surface level and goes beyond the surface between the Pluto person and the Mars person, because of the intensity that this aspect can bring and the feeling of being deeply connected for the Mars person and for the Pluto person. There can be a lot of emotional depth, and sometimes when it comes to that emotional depth between the two of them, can even be so much so that they have a hard time explaining it. And sometimes when it comes to that emotional depth of this aspect, can even be in ways that they may even both have a hard time understanding it. But when it comes to an aspect like having Pluto in an opposition to Mars, this does bring a lot of intensity, and it does feel like a connection that goes much deeper than just the surface level between the two of them. And when it comes to Pluto, it is all about transformation. So when it comes to the way in which the Mars person interacts with the Pluto person, there is going to be some transformation in their connection. It can feel like a transformative connection. But with the opposition here, it's not always going to be easy when it comes to being able to experience that transformation. And even though they may grow in a lot of ways, that is actually going to result in them being able to actually experience the sense of growing through a lot of things that they go through together. This contributes to this feeling of transformation for them on an individual level, but it can also be something that's difficult to do with each other. Here, the Pluto person actually has the power to challenge the Mars person, making the Mars person feel either provoked, or the Mars person wants to be able to prove themselves in this relationship with the Pluto person. And when it comes to how the Mars person shows up, they may do more than what they usually would do. And that's because they feel that the Pluto person is challenging them. When it comes to the feelings that the Mars person can feel in this relationship with the Pluto person, it can feel over-energized, but they can also feel exhausted from this relationship with the Pluto person. And for both the Pluto person and the Mars person, it's going to be a relationship that's hard to walk away from. And for the Mars person especially, they'll never forget the Pluto person, because of the Pluto person's way of knowing how to really push them to their limits in a way that also teaches them a new way to be able to have and look at control and power. But also when it comes to the Mars person's relationship with the Pluto person, they feel quite captivated and can actually feel also consuming when it comes to the relationship with the Pluto person. And on the other hand, when it comes to the Pluto person, they may experience this relationship with the Mars person as one that actually brings out a lot of extremes in them. They may experience a lot of almost like a love-hate kind of a dynamic with the Mars person. Like the Pluto person doesn't just like the Mars person, they are compelled by the Mars person. Because when it comes to the impact that the Mars person has on the Pluto person, the Mars person is able to make the Pluto person feel so much, and the Pluto person may want to know why, and may actually be quite intrigued by the Mars person because they have the ability and the power to be able to do that to them. Some of the challenges that they may experience with this aspect, things like power struggles or even issues to do with control, and even things to do with sometimes obsession. And when it comes to any kind of power struggles between the two of them, this can happen because when it comes to Pluto, Pluto wants control. And when it comes to Mars, Mars wants action. And when it comes to the two of them wanting both control and action, they can also be in a space where they're not going to back down when it comes to being able to go after that with each other. So they can get into arguments or even fights over being able to have this in their relationship. And when it comes to any of their arguments or even fights, they both want to win, as opposed to wanting to be able to understand each other or where each other is coming from. And when it comes to the arguments or to the fights, they can be quite intense with this aspect as well. And also when it comes to the challenges of this aspect that it can bring up between the two of them is that when it comes to having this aspect, things can lead to being toxic between the two of them, or lead to toxic patterns between the two of them, especially if they're not handling this aspect and what it brings up in their relationship between each other in a mature way, intentionally. When it comes to the Pluto, when it comes to the Pluto person and just the Pluto energy within this aspect, the Pluto can also bring about things like one or both of the partners feeling this sense of possessiveness, or feeling possessive or obsessive over the other partner. And this has the potential to provoke the Mars person. And when it comes to the Mars person, they can be impulsive. This energy can be reactive to that energy. And this is where they can have that toxic pattern in their relationship between the two of them if they're not handling it maturely. But when it comes to the challenges of this aspect, it can be things like the potential for emotional manipulation between the two of them, and also jealousy that they can have within this relationship. And also with the opposition, there can be that push-pull dynamic between the two of them. So they can experience this relationship between the two of them as an on-again, off-again kind of a dynamic within their relationship with each other, where one minute it can feel like the passion between the two of them is through the roof, and then the next minute they can feel like they know how to push each other's buttons, and in the worst ways. And essentially when it comes to having this aspect in your synastry with someone, it is not an aspect for the faint of heart, but it is not a deal breaker, and things can still work out. And when it comes to having this aspect, it can lead to a lot of growth and a lot of transformation from this aspect being present in their relationship, especially emotional transformation for both of them. They're both likely very intensely attracted to each other with this aspect, under this aspect's influence, because this aspect does bring an insane attraction to a relationship for two people. But on the other hand, it can also feel like a roller coaster that never stops when it comes to the experience of this aspect that they go through together on an emotional level. And they're most likely also going to have some power struggles to work through together. So this aspect does require a willingness between the two of them to be able to work through any of those power struggles that can come up from this aspect. And also when it comes to any kind of conflicts or any kind of disagreements or arguments that can be quite intense with this aspect, also both of the partners making sure they're not just fighting to win, but also to be able to understand each other. So really trusting the process, letting go of control with each other, can lead to a lot of beautiful transformation for this relationship with this aspect. With Mars opposite your partner's Pluto, this is a powerful connection when it comes to this aspect, but it is still an opposition. And with oppositions, this can mean tension. So instead of using the tension to be able to fuel any kind of fights between the two of them, being able to use that tension towards something more so productive, like creative projects or deep conversations, can also be a nice way to take advantage of this powerful aspect that they have between the two of them. And when it comes to having this aspect, this can also bring with it a lot of power plays, and being able to recognize the power plays in their relationship is also something that's going to help be able to actually avoid those challenges. Because between the Mars person and the Pluto person, they're both playing to win. So being able to take a step back and understand and reflect upon where the power dynamics are headed in their relationship with each other is also going to be something very advantageous in this relationship with this aspect. Because both the Mars person and the Pluto person most likely want to win. They may be viewing their disagreements, their fights, or their arguments as battles. And when instead of looking at it as a battle between the two of them, that's when transformation can come about from having this aspect. And essentially having the willingness to be able to work through a lot of their issues together and being able to try to be able to grow through them together, as opposed to wanting to one-up each other, and being able to trust the process within their relationship with each other. They can have this transformational kind of love, this transformative kind of a connection with each other, where they grow, and they can grow in personal ways with each other from the experience of the relationship with this aspect. Because when it comes to an opposition here between Pluto and Mars, this can mean power struggles. And when it comes to a willingness to be able to work through those power struggles together, this is how they can avoid that feeling of this relationship feeling like an emotional roller coaster that never stops. But even more than just the great potential for being able to have deep transformation between the two of them with this aspect, and a lot of potential for growth within this relationship with this aspect, they also have the kind of relationship that feels like it is one where there's a strong chemistry between the Mars person and the Pluto person. And when it comes to the attraction and the passion, it is unmatched between the Pluto person and the Mars person. And when it comes to the attraction and the passion, it's not just physical, it's also experienced on an energetic level between the two of them, which is why it can be very, very magnetic. And it can also be the reason why, even in difficult times, they're always going to find a way or want to be able to come back to each other through those challenging times. And it's not a superficial kind of a connection that they share with each other. It is one that's going to force them to deal with the deep stuff. And when it comes to the effect that the Mars person has on the Pluto person and the Pluto person has on the Mars person, can be very empowering as well. Ultimately, with this aspect, it can make a relationship be one that is going to be very life-changing. And also for the Mars person and the Pluto person, they may experience this as being one of the most powerful or life-changing relationships that they experience, because it is going to have a lasting impact on both of them, and it's going to change them in a big way. Well, that does it for this video on having your Mars in a opposition to your partner's Pluto in SYNASTRY. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it and that you found it helpful. And if you did, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos. Well, that is where I love and leave you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye guys.